Welcome back to the next 5 years, a show where we look at the massive technological shifts reshaping the business landscape and map out exactly how small and medium-sized businesses can survive and thrive. Today's guest is Rick Orr, founder and CEO of AGNT AI, a company building AI-powered digital agents that help real estate professionals make smarter decisions and take the right actions at the right time. Rick is a serial technology entrepreneur with more than 25 years of experience building and scaling companies through multiple waves of innovation. He was at the founding team at Whole Security, which was acquired by Symantec, then founded a mobile payments company, Tabbed Out, then created the real estate technology platform called Real Savvy, and now he saw an opportunity to transform the world's largest industries like real estate using AI. So he's leading an AGNT AI platform, which we will come to shortly. What makes Rick's perspective particularly valuable is that he has lived through several technology revolutions. He's seen what happens when a new technology genuinely changes an industry and when the hype gets ahead of the reality. So today we're going to explore what AI is actually changing for businesses, what small and medium-sized businesses or the companies should be focusing on over the next 5 years, and where Rick believes the biggest opportunities and the biggest challenges or the mistakes will be in the next few years. So Rick, welcome to the next 5 years.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's get this thing going, Rick. To kick things off, I've tried to explain a little bit what you do. Obviously, I didn't do the justice. Could you tell us about yourself a little bit, about your company, what it does, and what your role is in the business?
Sure thing. No, you did a great job. Yeah, I've a bit tenured in a startup world, having, as you mentioned, gone through security software, fintech, along a 28-year sort of timeline. So I've sort of seen the ebbs and flows of how macro markets are kind of impacting startups and small businesses, and of course the opportunities that technology have allowed for these different phases. Kind of hearkening back to my college, university time, I was a civil engineer major. I had 2 programming classes of Fortran and COBOL, which are about as relevant as not relevant, right? But I was sort of my career was born into the kind of dot-com bubble. And it's easy to get drunk on the kind of hype. And I actually, my university training in favor of jumping straight into the technology space, probably kicking my coverage a little bit since I was not a precisely trained computer scientist at the time, but just dangerous enough to get hired on as a business consultant with Accenture, and learned a lot of the technology stack means. Back then it was Visual Basic and very, very irrelevant technologies. My career's allowed me to kind of see through firsthand lens all these different these shifts and trends. Mobile payments, so it was in the app world. We were one of the first apps. We had 7 million downloads of a pay your bar tab. Stop having to hand your credit card to the bartender was the general use case. The company continues today as Union POS, but we hold some really great patents, how you pay through your phone. More importantly though, to the kind of trend comment, it was kind of, in my experience, my career, kind of the second big wave, the idea that the phone would be so impactful and powerful. And now, of course, we're here with AI. Along that path, even in college, I have been a practicing real estate agent. Our very famous here for University of Texas, Vince Young and I started a mostly residential real estate company. And Real Savvy was founded in 2014, predicated on just me as an agent. It was too hard to do simple things like market my business. And so we founded a company that in a very efficient way could create beautiful luxury websites, listing presentations, marketing, and then of course help consumers in the early days, in fact, of really Zillow and whatnot, before that sort of shifted to consumer behavior, connect and stay connected with buyers and sellers through that process. I sold that company to Ojo Labs in 2019. I hung around there for about 3 years, and then I bought the company back in 2024. So that was the first time in my career, I had never even really contemplated such a thing, that I would sell it and try to buy it back. But the reality was I needed, all of the technology that I used to run my real estate practice. And so it made sense to buy it back. being in Texas, this wasn't a business when I bought it back that I was intending to, violently grow and scale. I called it my brisket business. If you know much about barbecue in Texas, it's low and slow, right? It wasn't going to stress over it. I needed it for my own marketing, and then AI started to become the big topic. Another company in town that I was connected to through an incubator called Capital Factory was kind of begging, hey, we're really struggling to scale. Real Savvy has got all these customers, like maybe we can partner. And so eventually we bought the company Listing Village, which was very early in the AI conversation, particularly for prop tech. Bought that company in 2024 and created AGNT AI as at the time, a holding company that we would absorb Real Savvy and Listing Village into one. And the initial focus was mostly around automation, generative AI, things that would help a real estate agent, be able to do more with their day. All the while, at least in the US market, we were going through some pretty substantial shifts in the way that the National Association of Realtors was requiring agents to handle their commissions. And this put commission compression in play and various other things that necessitated automation. And so it's a really, I think, smart thing for us to kind of lean into. I would say it was, the truly embryonic kind of phase of AI compared to what has changed. I love the topic of your podcast. That's the next 5 years. It used to be that you could predict 5 years pretty confidently. I don't know that you can now. It's what I've seen personally in the last 6 months just for our business. I couldn't have, in a sci-fi movie, imagined it would have transformed as quickly as it has. Just the things that I'm able to do as early on what I would call a pretty crappy developer, but now I can, I write a large portion and corpus of our daily code and product features, which for me, as a longtime kind of product-oriented, CEO and founder, it's always been a little challenging. You can kind of see where the hockey puck is trying to go, but then you have these traditional software cycles that you don't really get to experiment. You have to make big bets and you have to land it, or you've wasted a ton of investor money and a ton of time and a ton of opportunity. I really loved, on the topic of where we are, Gary Tan of Y Combinator. Not only does he offer a great number of Claude and Codex skills that we can now take advantage of, that kind of gets the benefit of tons of Y Combinator geniuses building and doing cool things, but he kind of had this recent post on X about sort of inviting entrepreneurs to boil the ocean. And that is the absolute wrong advice for all of my career until now. And so rather than measure 3 times and cut once and do 19 weeks of focus groups, and you build and you build and you build. And that's been, for me, waking up most mornings at 5 a.m. and being able to actually author. Well, I'll say author. As much as I might have read 3 books on a couple of recent vacations, technically they were on Audible. So whatever that means, So now writing code is whatever the equivalent would be with Claude and Codex. But it creates this interesting moment where it is become decidedly easy to do what were historically very hard things. The most technically in-depth things are now in a, at least, which is I think probably an important topic. Easier than ever had been imagined, even with the smartest engineering team and product teams in the world, to be able to get things to that kind of proverbial 80%. A lot of the challenge is that last 20%. And I think that's what we're seeing in the market is, in real estate, I'm seeing agents that are not technical at all, using Claude agents to automate great portions of their business. And they're bumping their heads on some things like burning tokens faster, not writing efficient prompts. They're not really trained like a computer scientist or a product manager would be to kind of do things most efficiently. But they're enjoying that dopamine hit of empowerment and automation. And it's just really exciting to see. So in sort of summary, I'll leave some areas here.
That's fantastic. Actually, that's a great. Those people who are listening to you speaking right now, and they probably may not be aware of AGNT AI, your product. Could you tell us, first of all, what actually it does? I know you said it works with property or the real estate agents or the companies. So actually, what does it do and how does it help them?
Yeah, so in the journey from Real Savvy to what is now AGNT AI, and including a kind of a rebrand that's sort of happening now, We sort of recognize, and I, through 28 years of selling real estate, recognize, where most of the challenges lie for productivity, for automating marketing, for many of us that hold 20,000 person, databases of past clients, connections, leads that came through purchase or organic or whatever the case may be. Agent AI, its vision is to solve that sort of series of problems for this particular industry. Our industry is made up of mostly 1099 employees. They're not employees, right? So unlike enterprise, where there's a lot of opportunity for AI to kind of be passed down as this is the thing that you are going to use at, large Fortune 500 company, X, Y, or Z. Agents don't really operate that way. They bounce around from broker to broker. They need a mechanism that can take their database and their sphere and all of their tooling from brand to brand to brand as independent contractors. And so Agent AI automates effectively with fully leveraging AI their daily productivity needs, which would be a few use cases. Grant is our AI. We rather than confuse our industry with we have a ton of agents for you, just like you've got this guy named Grant, and he's there for everything that you need. Everything that, many things they could go and self-serve if they were adept at Claude Code, Cowork, and various things like that. We do for them. And so Grant's at 7 a.m. every morning, whatever time zone you're in, has delivered to you a push notification through the Agent AI app that says, hey, Rick, good morning. Here are the 14 things that I did for you. Oftentimes, these are congratulations on the new listing. I have created a perfectly sized, Instagram post reel, a perfectly sized TikTok, reel, using the photos from the listing that were integrated with the MLS. These are tasks that they would use for Canva, et cetera, but, they're very time consuming. And frankly, for me, it's one of the bane of my existence. I hate that stuff. It's just a necessary evil. You have to say, hey, I've got a new listing, and you post onto Instagram, just listed in cursive. That's just a thing that's not that hard to do. Grant does all those things for agents. Grant will take the 5 best photos from your listing and create a walkthrough video and a social media post, and it'll run a month's worth of content marketing already. The point of Agent AI is that in an industry where it's unlikely our customers will rapidly adopt the prompt-centric world of AI, we have given them something of an un-CRM in that it has, not a UI heavy, it's not a prompt sort of centric experience. Instead, it's done for you tasks. And those tasks range from marketing to sort of reactivating a database. I mentioned before the idea that most of our customers are carrying, I would say I think our average across 8,000 customers is around, it's probably 8,000. But that's probably high, probably 7,000 leads. Whatever the quality of those is always a little bit variable. But most of us, and I can say that as an agent, don't really know what to do with them. We kind of colloquially call it our database. There's a bunch of value in it. AI is fantastic at deriving a next best action from someone that you might have, sold a home to years ago. In fact, as I was building out some of these particular recent features with the team, we had built a feature that would go back and look at your historical sales. And one of Grant's morning messages was, hey, did you know this is the 5-year anniversary of the penthouse that you sold to Kyle? I've written a message to Kyle just to say, hey, hope you're doing well. Can you believe it's been 5 years? These are simple tasks, right? We're not trying to be the most cerebral AI implementation. We're leveraging it for an industry that has a lot of logistical challenges on a day. They're out in the field, they're on their phone, they're at a stoplight more often than they're at a desk. And while they have a lot of things they could do sitting in front of a terminal and, trying to learn AI, it's not something that's going to be available to them really for potentially this 5-year period. What I do love about our industry is that I do think it moves, at least for our company, more slowly. It always historically has moved more slowly than what, most verticals that would be driven by an enterprise type of adoption curve. And so by doing all these tasks, by having a CRM in their pocket that, by the way, connects with all the relevant large CRMs, you don't have to replace any bit of software. in a sentence, we intentionally have boiled the ocean. Like we've built all the aspects of automated marketing, database nurturing, communication with customers, transaction management. It writes your contracts for you. As a broker myself, one of the things that's always very challenging is you've got agents, some different experience than others, and you're always at a legal risk if they write a contract incorrectly. So Grant reads contracts, educates the broker on where things might be fair housing violations or whatever, tells the agent about it. So it's kind of an all-encompassing, bit of an operating system for the real estate practice. We tend to attract mostly small teams, but individual agents and as well as 300-400 agent brokerages use the platform as well.
Okay, so in terms of, are you at the beginning of your journey with Agent Pro or Agent AI, your platform, or whereabouts are you?
Yeah, so we, on June the 30th, the mobile app, AGNT space AI, launched. We've not been pushing it aggressively yet, except to our existing customers. And the feedback has been incredible. We've got lots of agents that have long had access to our platform, and they're mostly have used the kind of Real Savvy product, which is part of the overall platform, which is integrating with their existing CRM and creating searches for buyers. So we live inside of probably the most popular CRM called Follow Up Boss. You could think of it as Salesforce for our industry as far as the near ubiquitously adopted one. We're an embedded app inside of that. Grant is in there looking at the person context and constantly helping them figure out how to sort of nurture. And so that product's been live for a number of years. And the history of the company with Real Savvy was founded in 2014. So we've been in market for a very long time. Agent AI is this sort of new branding and initiative around particularly these automated, done-for-you tasks of productivity and marketing and database nurturing. And so we launched on June the 30th. We had the most recent version approved by Apple yesterday. We'll roll out Android in the next couple of weeks. And so we'll be doing a bunch of marketing, frankly, today around net new users can sign up for 14 days for free to kind of experience it. It immediately connects with their listings, starts to bring value. And we're taking concepts, another way that we're thinking of AI that I think this industry is very amenable for, or is very conducive for our application of it. Very inspired by Elon's, kind of over-the-air mechanisms that they've used with Tesla and Optimus, where as the Optimus robot is, tripping on a rug, it learns that there's a rug and what a rug looks like, and it posts to the, over-the-air kind of fleet flywheel is what they call it. It was really founded in the Tesla world where, you run across a strange bit of a puddle, and every car needs to know what to handle a puddle, and so sort of the way it works, it understands it. Tesla's AI has long been then addressing this problem and sending it out to the fleet of cars. Same thing with the Optimus robots. He runs into a new circumstance, and then all the robots can benefit from it. What we're doing with Grant is very similar. We're taking the concept of now 8,000 agents, and hopefully very soon 80,000 agents. As they're engaging with Grant and talking with Grant and solving problems, the benefit of the entire network is very similar to the OTA model. And so that's our vision for Agent AI, is that it's a free to download and try, get the benefit of there's almost 2 million agents in the US, and another a couple 100,000 in Canada where we'll be very soon. So we're taking kind of these fleet flywheel OTA style mechanisms, and the app will enable that for our population of our fleet of real estate agents. In kind of a more holistic statement, Agent AI is the brand. Customers use us for their websites and their home search platform, where they will send search alerts to buyers and sellers. Hey, here's 3 beds, 4 baths with a pool in whatever neighborhood of we have support across pretty much all the U.S. market. To edit that website, we're using AI in the form of a product called Savvy Studio. The URL for that is savvy-studio.agnt.pro. And that is a lovable, inspired, natural language website editor. where these people have a lot of branding interests, kind of the key thing for real estate agents getting found on ChatGPT, which the platform is exceptional at. We use AI for them to be able to make edits. One of our challenges in the sort of first iteration of Real Savvy was it would quickly fall into kind of a services category. You've got people that want a certain cornflower blue colored button on the website, right? And we built our own website editor because WordPress and others were a little bit too complicated for most agents to kind of wield on their own. But at the end of the day, without natural language and AI, it was still limited to people figuring out a tool and how to make an edit and maybe understanding cursory level CSS. Now, with Savvy Studio, they have a beautiful website, kind of competes with any luxury, beautiful website that you would imagine. They talk to it and say, I want the buttons to be cornflower blue, and they just turn blue and they hit publish. So those are kind of like the collection of products. You have ways that people kind of wedge into Meet Grant, whether they want a website, whether they just need to integrate with that CRM and be able to create searches. In all cases, everything points to Agent AI and Grant's capabilities to help them with all points of their business.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Actually, what I really like about your proposition is you brought all the agents together and gave them one name, so simplicity, and then focused on just one vertical, which is the industry you know very well, the real estate or the real estate agents. And you know the industry, you're basically building the product for yourself, and you know that the same problems exist across the board as well, especially in the North America.
Yeah, I think a lot of opportunity for companies, they're trying to leverage AI. It's going to be hard to build just a great widget, right? The SaaS industry is in great peril for that reason. I would say any CRM company out there has got some interesting challenges because I'm observing not incredibly technical agents build what they need for kind of a bespoke CRM in just a couple of weeks. And even if they only get it to 80% functionality, they're saving money, and that extra 20% gap is a justifiable thing for them to kind of live with. What's not happening in the industry and what we're trying to solve is that sort of combination of desired outcomes in a single kind of login that accomplishes all aspects of marketing and productivity and kind of database nurture as well as website, which would be part of the marketing. Depth in a vertical, I think, is a way that startups like us can survive and importantly thrive. Back to the Gary Tan sort of statement of boiling the ocean, we would never have made sense. We'd have had to have a giant engineering team to accomplish what we've accomplished. I wouldn't be able to take an idea of a problem I had today with a real specific use case. I was driving, received an offer, know my client very well. They like to see the offer like immediately. And if I send them an email that's 2 hours late, they're like, why are you just now sending it to me? So I have this problem. I'm at a stoplight. What am I going to do? It's a typical offer in Texas might be 38 pages of PDFs trying to read those on your phone. And it's not error prone. You miss a checkbox, you don't see something. And so you're wanting to get the offer to the seller. Grant you with the app, and this has been proven out by many people that have been kind of testing over the past week. You get the email, you open the PDF, you share it through the phone to Grant. Grant parses the PDF, breaks out all the key dates, and literally at the next stoplight, in fact, in a very real case, my client Vic sent him the thing, and I actually sounded smart whenever I first spoke with them because I knew what the contract said. And that's the first time for me. In 28 years of selling real estate, I've never had that type of efficiency. If you think of it in the grand scheme of AI, that's not the most technically advanced use of it, right? It's just the right thing for that particular scenario and for this particular industry. And so that's the kind of inspection reports are the most terrifying looking things to a buyer, right? Everything looks bad. If you've ever had a red line on a contract, it looks like that, right? It's like, oh, they hate everything, right? It's all, the house is going to fall down. It's never the case, right? It's always the same stuff. These inspectors are built to tell you a bunch of stuff that might be wrong. And as realtors, we have to kind of like build a narrative and kind of help them understand what's really important out of it. AI is great for that. So I can send an inspection report. It picks the photos and the elements that in my conversations with Grant kind of whittle it down to a simple briefing that while I'm at a stoplight, I can fire over to my client and we're talking while I'm driving in a meaningful way about what they really should be concerned with. So these are the kind of like use cases that we're able to do thanks to AI and would have historically required a whole company to do just one of those little sliver featurettes. Now it's productivity suite.
That's fantastic. I know you've been around for a while. You build companies in cybersecurity. You build company in payment processing or mobile payments, and now you're in AI. Does it feel this new wave of technology any different from the other ones? Because they also had potentially a transformational ability to transform the whole industries, if you like. Cybersecurity, obvious reasons, mobile payments again. AI, does that feel any different, bigger, smaller, the same impact?
The three waves to me are the internet, then the iPhone, right? And the iPhone represented distribution. The idea for Tabbed Out was born 7 years before I built the company. The technology just wasn't there. Distribution of a piece of software to someone's phone would have required like a deep biz dev relationship with BlackBerry or Nokia, right? And that was just not available. It wasn't a cost-effective thing to do. You might be able to get, what was the Snake game and the Tetris game, right, on the phone, but you couldn't get something on the phone. So the iPhone and, of course, mobile app stores were, to me, the second wave. I would say those two were very similar in that they opened a world of startups to be able to build atop of a thing that wasn't there before. AI is different. AI is building on top of existing things with a velocity that's never been remotely, even those building the technology kind of had a vision for it. But as a 28-year technologist, I'm baffled at how quickly it's moving. So it's different in its speed. What my team could do last year with Claude and Cursor, et cetera, versus today, it's not even, I think the company has had more commits and more overall kind of product in the form of lines of code in 100 days than it had in the past 12 years. Wow. There's no way to equate that to anything that's ever happened. I think the guardrails are where I think the rubber will ultimately meet the road. So in our industry, one thing that's very important, so we integrate with around 330 MLSs, and it's kind of crazy how many MLSs there are. You'd think you would just create a product that serves up home search, but us, just like Redfin and Zillow, et cetera, you have to have individual relationships and individual kind of members of what amounts to almost 600 total MLSs just in the US. I mean, we've got 4 within a couple hundred miles of Austin. These MLSs are very intent on, as they should be, on compliance. And so there are logos that have to be placed in a particular area. There's broker disclosures and disclaimers and just all that's compliance, right? With an agent having the ability to, we're seeing agents try and scrape Zillow to go and build their own home search platform, right? The power that they have is, what was the old Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. That's kind of like where some of the challenges are arising. Day-to-day productivity, people are leveraging it to great ends. We're trying to make it easier for them. We're trying to say, yes, you could go and learn these things, but you're really great at sales, really great at relationships. Like, let Grant handle all those things that you would otherwise have to do. And so I would say, different than any of those other waves, it wasn't the case that a realtor could pick up and build a website back in 2001. That was not likely to happen. There were a few, but in the Jeffrey Moore kind of innovation curve, this is pre-innovator kind of earliest part of the histogram. Now it's almost like centerpiece of it's post-chasm, if you're familiar with the Jeffrey Moore kind of analogy there, but that's different. AI's capabilities to empower with no limits on who can wield is so different than any of the prior waves that we're all learning on a week by week basis. Even things that our platform has always been very good at SEO for the website portion of it, the real savvy portion of it. We were always kind of the best at getting people found on just organic traffic, and rather than sell people leads that don't convert, we would really have them focus on, hey, put content on your site and write great blog posts, and we did a lot of automation as well as you could before AI there. And those models with Google would change every maybe 6 months, right? You'd have to kind of figure out what the new SEO rules and algorithms were. Now it's all about getting found on ChatGPT or getting found by Claude or Perplexity or whatever. So agents want to be the answer for who's the best agent in Austin to help me going through a divorce, right? And so we have a customer, Kathleen Magat, and that's her focus, right? She's just found her way into that sort of niche. And so she could try and go and figure out how to get found on ChatGPT. With our platform, it was within 3 days of launching, she got her first leads and contracts within a couple of weeks around that topic because she's the answer to that question, thanks to kind of our investments in that realm. It's great for us because that, again, would have been an entire business initiative, right? Instead, it's just a feature of the overall grant, and Agent AI kind of is available today. But yeah, I would say that to your question, the prior waves were as impactful as we could have ever imagined then on the way that technology would evolve. Their evolutionary curves were a decade, right? That was kind of like how long it took. Now we're in a moment where I don't know if 5 years, I can't really imagine what 5 years looks like because of how quickly it's come. I do think one important thing, and we're observing this as well, and it's a smart business strategy for the AI companies, give you a taste of the power. And it's a very cost-effective taste, right? You can get a Pro Max account for whatever, $100 or whatever it is on Claude. And then you get to building a business and you quickly realize that you're gonna have to make heavy investments in compute that weren't so obvious when you got that first version to 80%. So I think one of the things that could potentially not so much slow it down, but kind of recalibrate is what the models are gonna do for their different cost structure. We all got to enjoy Fable on Claude for the past week before it's kind of, I guess today went back to API. And it's just a fun moment because we're trying our best to game all the token usage to the hour to use the most impressive platform or most impressive model that I've seen. But it's kind of quickly becomes a no free lunch moment where now you have to kind of rethink how you're going to use it. And I would say this, those that are tinkering, don't get too drunk on the top model all the time. I'm a big Claude user and Sonnet is incredible. It's truly incredible. The way that I think you build products is you do use the high thinking models for jiggling of the handle of something you might have built on a lower cost model. It really does a great job of shoring up loose ends, and higher models, the higher thinking models will really kind of bring it into a truly working product. It'll get you from that 80, maybe not to 100%, 99.5% of where you want to go. And then, as we do, we kind of arbitrage back to the lower cost models for bug fixes and things like that. And you can build a really cost-effective business if you put the time and effort into it. For any realtors that are listening to this, I would say you got to be really careful because you don't need for our industry the higher thinking models for the most part. You can get a lot done with Haiku and Sonnet, and I'm watching even people on my team, there's blowing tokens up, and I'm like, why? You're just lazy, you're being lazy. You gotta just take a minute, invest in the prompt, right? Invest in what is your real desired outcome. Use ChatGPT for the first iterations of spec writing, right? Use Cursor for different things. And so in my typical day, I'm a big CLI user. I use CMux as kind of my environment, and I'll have 3 sessions going for kind of bug fixes, 2 sessions going for kind of net new product features, et cetera. And the first 3 are almost always on Haiku. That's plenty. And then when I do start to feel like I'm running into usage things, then I just take problems to the other models. And so it's an interesting moment where a lot of the time needed investment in time for people developing AI right now is to be mindful about how you break out the day and don't just say, hey, fix it, right? It worked, but it'll burn down your wallet if you're not careful. I think that's what's probably going to be the next 5 years is there's going to be Fable will look like Child's Play at some point, right? It'll be seemingly dumb, but it'll be cheap. And it'll be cheaper than the net new thing. I think that's what we'll sort of see, or how people can play within the kind of economics and the sort of token economy to build effective and cost-efficient businesses and really maximize this amazing capability. And I think we'll see pricing models shift very aggressively in favor of these trillion-dollar companies because they're all going through IPOs and it's obvious they have to show investor return. But also that different guardrails are going to be implemented to sort of protect. It's a little bit too, here in Texas, a little bit too Wild West right now. And we will see some level of governance start to change the velocity. So my kind of sort of statement is build, run, because I think we can all do it potentially cheaper than we'll be able to in 5 years. And then hopefully you've built a corpus of a product that you advance beyond your competitors, and you'll be in a really strong position.
Yeah, you're totally right. Actually, I believe that the price of those tokens and the usage of AI will go down, is going down slightly. Actually, there was a great article in Economist last week, long-term reader of Economist for a long time. It's a great article, a very good comparison of certain models and the capabilities and what you can do with those models. And they cover the models around the world, and then they compare the cost effectiveness as well. Just top of my head, if you're using, say, $1.50 on a model in the US, any Anthropic or any of these LLMs, in China you can get exactly the same productivity or the outcome for a fraction, like 20 or 25 cents or something. So even though it could have been less than that, maybe 1/20th. And then Europe was somewhere in the middle, especially French models. So yeah, but that's now, but hopefully the competition will be there and the prices will come down. But I was wondering, since you mentioned the speed from idea to execution to delivery is shrinking rapidly with AI, do you think many of these industries are just going to possibly even disappear?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be the case. Of what many now, or at least currently, very valuable companies were built upon, they were hard problems. They needed very large engineering teams, and they just weren't available for an individual to pick up and try and build from scratch. CRMs are, to me, the most obvious because at the end of the day, a CRM is contacts and leads and then trying to do something with them. Most people that have tinkered enough with Claude can do the MCP for Gmail and really a day accomplish what that CRM they were paying for is doing. I think CRMs are kind of commoditized for that reason. Websites too, which is both of those touch our business. You can build a website in seconds, right? Like even our AI builds a new website for a customer in 8 seconds, right? And they're beautiful, right? And they're high performing, AA-able, and all these things. I think those that have been on the periphery of like core value are at high risk because I think those are the most subject to displacement and disintermediation. For our industry, it's websites and CRMs and yeah, like creating a video out of some photos. Like that's not a hard thing to do now. Canva.
Yeah, I was wondering from your experience, what's going on in the industry, being a former consultant as well. Uh, Almost everyone in the world now has heard of AI, and every single small business owner want to use AI. They probably have an AI strategy as well of some sort. But what are they getting wrong at this moment? Do you know?
What I'm observing, I'm a degenerate golfer. I'll just be honest. I love golf. I play a lot of golf, and well, frankly, a lot of agent AI is built around: can I do something while I'm, can I hit a button, go up and hit a putt, and my business move forward? Right. That's the simple way of thinking of it. But a friend of mine built a golf betting app and got it to that kind of 80%. And he observed two things that I don't think he expected. And he actually has a relatively technical background. Finishing it is hard, right? It's very, very hard to take something to production. What Claude and the others do that's very well and is frankly driving a ton of value for companies like Vercel is they will spin up a thing that looks really beautiful really, really, really quickly. But functionally, having built 28 years of enterprise apps, there's a big gap, right? And I think that's where people that are kind of lone gunmen or womaning it are going to run into this continual it's not done and I can't get it done. And then suddenly those super base costs and all the free plans and all the things start stacking up. And my friend that built the app was like, I'm spending $400 a month. I'm not even charging anybody for this thing. And it was really exciting to watch them, kind of experience, again, that dopamine of creation. And it's what I love so much about it. I love it so much for me because I'm empowered now. I don't have to wait on an engineering cycle for everything. We still have, of course, engineers that do the right things, which are scale and re-architect, and AI it's not so much slop anymore, it's waste. There's a lot of waste and inefficiencies in the code it writes if you don't have a trained brain kind of doing it. So what we're doing is we're getting things intentionally to 90% and then handing them to salty engineering veterans that kind of make it real. And I think that's the best way I can answer that question is that people are going to get to that moment and they're going to struggle to kind of make a actual production app. That may not be a huge limiter for those that are trying to solve their personal operating system problems. I think that's available, right? Like you can live with, yeah, but I'm doing, 8 things are done for me and I still have to do 2. That's fine. For a business, you can't, that's not acceptable, right? Like it's got to be scalable, it's got to be architected correctly, it's got to handle security, right? Like one of the things you'll see is that most of the things when they're being built in kind of vibe mode are not like, don't have no row level security. Kind of gets back to my sort of security early part of my career. In fact, my co-founder tabbed out is with me in this company, and he's probably the best security brain I've ever known. Kind of laughs sometimes, like how I will unintentionally kind of put us at a moment of like, well, if we keep going this way, like somebody can do something bad. Traditional software and the processes are not irrelevant now. They're just modified. A lot of what was required of product management, product marketing, focus groups, et cetera, are not as relevant now. You can move way past that, or at least move through that very rapidly. A lot of folks are going to kind of run into, we're going to get in trouble, right? They're going to, whether it's compliance for our customers, where they're not following the rules of the MLS, where they're scraping public companies' data, which they're not privy to do, to just simply building systems and databases that are not secure. I think there's a whole industry that will emerge around almost like vibe security. And it's probably a skill that people sell or otherwise kind of augment people using Claude and other models to constantly be checking like a traditional DevOps and highly experienced senior architect or engineer would do. I think those are the things that are kind of the most alarming right now for those that are pushing their boundaries potentially more than they should. But again, they're having fun, so I don't discourage them. I think it's great. I love it when a realtor calls and says, I got this to 80%. And I'm like, perfect. I know exactly what you want now, so we'll finish it for you, right? For us, we deal in websites. That's a key component of our platform. A lot of people from Real Savvy, they know us as a real estate website company. A lot of people don't know what they want, right? It's this like cumbersome, highly subjective. One of the things that would kind of kill us in the past is, I want my website to pop. It's like, what does that mean? I don't know how to define that, right? Now they can figure out what pop means to them and hand to us their brain. And with our tooling and everything, we can actually help them finish it. And that was very hard for an agent to do. And so like they're happier. We're certainly happier because we understand what they want. And we have the tooling to do it insanely fast now. And some things are, you have customers that sign up online and they have a live website in 8 hours, right? Which that used to be weeks. And it's fun. It's terrifying. It's hard to keep up. Like one of my frustrating things is I have to just stay heads down. I know there are evolving models all around me and there's better tools and better skills, but you could spend all day just trying to find the perfect combination of things versus just getting work done. That's another thing I'm seeing is people get very distracted. My practice is I use Sunday afternoon, I read. And I try to see what I've missed for the week. And sometimes I realize that I missed the first wave of Fable, and I'm glad because I didn't get distracted by it. When the second one comes around, I'm thinking, well, it must be better, right? So dove in last week, right? So anyway.
I love the focus. I really do, actually. Rick, I got to be respectful of your time because you're a busy man. Last question. Our audience is primarily small, medium-sized businesses listening to this podcast. If you walked into a 50-person company, for example, tomorrow, keeping AI as a theme, where would you start?
Yeah, do a lot of what we've sort of done, partly out of necessity and otherwise just out of opportunity. You can now take your old tech stacks and your old legacy debt and you can move them forward. And that's the right first investment, right? Prepare your business for where this hockey puck is going or where this is going. That's the first thing to do. So just make the investment and Claude will even tell you this is going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And then you say, Claude, I want it done in 3 days and you'll do it. You can do it. Legacy systems, if they're not positioned for these models correctly, a lot of people that are building net new software have a decided advantage because they're starting from Claude will, in its context, and will have full understanding of what it is. In our case, we've got 12 years of legacy code. We had 7 different databases serving aspects of canonical relevance to the system. In the 100 days that I mentioned before, we changed all that. It's down to 3 core databases. We probably saved thousands a month between Heroku and AWS, kind of centralizing and optimizing. And now every bit of new code we write, Claude has the context of not only the past, we've built 7 internal MCP servers for all these different databases and corpus of knowledge, and it's critical you make those investments. There's no point. You'll get real excited creating a net new thing in that 50-person company, and that net new thing, without the context of what your business has been built upon, is going to run into a wall that's going to be incredibly frustrating. That would be my best advice, is use this technology. Ask Claude very specifically, hey, look at all my legacy stuff. What should I do? And it's very good at understanding that. Give it the construct of what your goals are. Do you want it to be cost savings? Do you want it to be human capital savings, which is probably the most obvious thing to do with a 50-person company is, does it need to be 50 people? That's a kind of one of the more unfortunate things. I mean, I've hired 2,000 plus people in my career, and I love them. They go on and do their own companies. It's amazing, but as a business owner, I need as few expenses as I can possibly have. And human capital is a immediate gain that you can achieve through this for that 50-person company. And importantly, the legacy code base to prepare for an AI world those are the first two things I would look at.
This is actually really, really incredible advice, Rick. This is a really fresh perspective, and I say that honestly. The reason being, a couple of weeks ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He's done very well in his entrepreneurial career, and he gave all his assets, all his liabilities, everything he had, all the businesses, all the financials to Claude, and asked, how do I restructure the whole thing and prepare for the next 10, 15, 20 years, my retirement, for example. And in about half a minute, he had the whole analysis and the whole, clarity going forward. He didn't need any financial advisor. He didn't need anything. So as you say, just give the right information, right context to AI, all the systems in your company, and then ask for the advice, and you wouldn't be disappointed, which is actually really exciting and also very scary going forward. It's only going to improve.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. Rick, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Really enjoyed this conversation and really excited for you guys. I'll keep an eye for you. Lastly, people who want to get in touch with you and just want to say hello, how do they do that?
Rick at agnt.pro is easier, agnt.pro. And that's just Orrick, ORRRICK.
That's fine. We'll include them in the description, in the show notes. Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Great.
Let's talk.